Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Napkin Test Podcast. I have my friend, Mr. Carl Borman, realtor extraordinaire and real estate investor. Very smart guy, MBA. Hi, Carl. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Chris. Everybody, how you doing?
Good. Okay. So just a quick history on Carl. Carl is one of my trusted friends, hunters, realtors. He's purchased deals for me, my clients. I trust what he says, and he has a deal for us today. So, Carl, give us a really short lowdown on your history, and then let's check out your deal.
Hey, well, thanks, Chris. A short lowdown on my history?
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I met you 15 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. Back before you were a master of numbers. But we kept in touch, and now you are my number one guy for not only my clients but myself. And I don't want to make too much of it, but you are one of the smartest guys I know when it comes to figuring out the numbers and just giving really solid advice. So that's why we're here.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I've been doing this for a long time, 15 years roughly. And I started out as a sort of a fix and flip guy, and went legit and just started being a real estate agent for investors and just regular folks like yourself.
Okay, cool. Went legit. I like that.
Yeah, well,
nice.
That's a whole other story we can talk about later.
So Carl has a deal, everybody. Let's do the napkin test on it. So I'm gonna do a little screen share here.
All right, bring it up.
Carl did his our trusty Bigger Pockets Foursquare analysis, and this is a duplex in Denver. So
yeah, so to protect the innocent, this is a live deal. We went under contract with this morning, so we're not going to share the address on this one. We're not trying to do anything shifty. We just don't want to jeopardize the deal or harm the seller in any way by revealing these numbers. So let's just say it's a live deal in a neighborhood in Denver that's up and coming. There's a lot of development going on there, and so not for this conversation, but for another day, we can talk about why this was chosen and why it's a great investment for future development. Okay. Yeah. Cool. So it's a duplex. It's on a large lot, and it's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath on 2 different levels. It's a fully above ground duplex, so it's legal. It's not some funky basement. It's a solid investment. So we'll just jump in. The purchase price is going to be right around $555, and the rent is, and I use Rentometer for my estimates, and I kind of double check those with units that I own and units that my other investors own, and then I also spot check other things like Zillow rentals and in Craigslist just to make sure that number's solid. So the median rental amount for this type of property is $2,095 in that neighborhood. Okay. So multiply that by 2, you get the $4,190. Okay. And that is all of our income there. There's nothing else to work on there. Okay. Expenses are the thing that really, this is really what you can mess up on if you're doing an analysis. So, these numbers are based on actual, last year's taxes. Insurance is an estimate, but it's based on a very similar property that one of my clients owns nearby. And so I feel pretty good about these. These are monthly numbers. So insurance, about $150 a month. Water and sewer, that's one that I always recommend people pay for, the water and the sewer. In this case, and that's because it's a super lien on the property. So if you do not, or your tenant does not pay the water or sewer bill, it's going to come back around to get you, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I had a prior experience where a tenant had not paid their water bill, but had come up with a payment plan with Denver Water, and I did not know about it. They moved out, and I found out about it the hard way later on. So in this case, I'm just budgeting in for water and sewer for a similar property, and I think $200 a month is right on. But this could vary quite a bit depending on landscaping and maybe your tenants are washing their car or whatever. So take that one with a grain of salt. Okay. Trash is usually included with taxes in Denver, so that's out. Electric and gas, that's a pass through to the tenant. I usually just make them sign up directly for that, and I don't collect on that. There's no HOA in this building, which is a huge bonus. Lawn, if you saw it, there is no lawn. Snow removal, I buy them a shovel. I'm kidding, but in the lease, I'm pretty specific about what they need to do to take care of things. And if they don't clear the snow within 24 hours, they usually get a fine, and the lease stipulates that they have to pay that fine. So that's a blank there. So vacancy rates, typically we ballpark 3% of the gross rent just to allow for turnover. Maybe you have some prep time to get it ready after you close before you can get someone in there. Maybe it just took longer to rent. So 3% is that 126 number there. Repairs, same thing, 5% of gross rent. And that could be anything from a dishwasher going out to just general maintenance. Sometimes you got to repaint. Things break. So always budget for repairs. And that's 210 there. Capital expenditures, those are things like the water heater goes out. There's always something that's going to go wrong, if not one year, the next. So always good to budget that in. If you don't use it, great. But I mean, it's probably going to get used. So that's going to be $300 a month or $3,600 a year. And that's a number that I typically create based on the condition of the property, the age of the appliances and such. And I don't have a hard and fast percentage for that one.
Okay.
And Chris, I know you have your hand in a property management company. So what do you think about that Capex number?
I think that's probably a little steep, but I think that's a safe number. Remember, if you got to do a new furnace is $3,000 to $5,000. A new water heater is $1,000. Sometimes you get rocked with a new sewer line. You can spend $10,000 on a new sewer line fairly easily. So to do a Capex number at $300 a month, I think that's very safe. So I like it when people overestimate. I overestimate costs and I underestimate profits. And so I kind of make the deal look as bad as I can make it reasonably look. And then if it still looks halfway decent after I've, rounded down my income and rounded up my expenses in when doing this analysis, then I go for it. So
yeah, I appreciate that. And you know me, Chris, I'm pretty conservative on my numbers because I love to, under promise and over deliver. If I was presenting this property to you and at the end of the year your Capex was, half that or even less, you'd be pretty happy about that. If it was the other way around and I put $50 in there, you probably wouldn't feel so good about it.
Absolutely. And just, granted, I have a tremendous amount of respect for you, Carl, and I know you can do math, but for anybody listening, you got to do your own math. You
Thanks.
Don't let real estate agents do your math for you. You don't let somebody, you got to learn your own math. And this Bigger Pockets Foursquare method is just the easiest, most straightforward way to test this. So,
I appreciate that.
So then a mortgage number, Carl, what rate did you put in for that to arrive at that mortgage payment?
Yeah, so I put in a 5% rate, and this is your territory, Chris. So I use a spreadsheet that cranks out my numbers, and then I just basically go to you and verify them. On this one here, we didn't talk about this yet, but I usually leave this up to you. But for illustration purposes, I used 5% because that's what you told me was close about a week ago. Mm-hmm. And it's going to vary by property. I mean, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So a conventional loan right now, so what's today, January 8th, 2020, I'd say a duplex with 25% down for an investment property with someone with excellent credit, you'd actually be much better than 5%. You'd be at about 4.5, maybe even a little less, depending on how much, if you wanted to buy down the rate or not. But let's just say the par would be let's call it 4.5. So I like when you round up significantly. So then when we get to the nitty gritty, and refine these numbers, you're actually happier. The whole point of the napkin test is to do the test, see if it makes sense, worst case scenario, so then you can get into the real numbers. You can call your mortgage broker. You can call your repair guys. You can call your insurance agent. You can verify all these numbers. So I think you should stick with estimating 5%, but right now it's at least a half percentage lower than that in rate if you've got good credit, at least. So rates are really good. So good.
I think what that point you just made is perfect in that you did say if you have good credit. So
yeah.
I mean the client here is a A+ credit person and a real experienced investor. So I would assume they get a pretty great rate.
Yeah. So the client on this one, if they've got a 780 or better, and they're putting 25% down, they're at least going to be, if they're locking in today, they're at least going to be at 4.5 with no extra costs, if not a little better. So, so good. And now this down payment, what percentage are you using for down payment?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because I typically use 20% down, because that's been sort of the number that you and I have been speaking about, but you just brought up 25. So tell me what you think.
On multifamily, you want to do 25% down as an investment property. If you're going to live there, you could be as low as 1% or 3.5% down. But if you're buying multifamily, you need 25% down as an investment property. If it's a single family house, you can do 20%. You can even do 15%. Now, yes, there's some fancy products out there, but we're just, again, napkin test. So I'm talking about a conventional loan that's sold on the secondary market to Fannie and Freddie. I'm talking about the cheapest money out there that you get with a true mortgage broker, okay? So if that's the case, I would go 25% down if you're not going to live there on a multifamily. If it was a single family, yeah, I'd go 20%. But me personally, and I've been at this for, I've been investing for 17 years. I like 25%. I like scratching the game. I like getting the cheapest money available, in terms of my loans. So, but yeah, let's keep running this at 20%, because that's what you did. Also, people, house hackers love these duplexes. So, a 20% down would assure that you're not paying mortgage insurance. So anyway, let's just.
You know what? Hey, next video, Chris, let's do a house hack version with this same property.
Okay, that's a good idea.
I want to see the numbers on that.
Okay, cool.
I'll bet it's really good.
Yeah, I mean, if this is a house hack, that interest rate has a 3 in front of it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, rates are pretty darn low. I mean, we're locking people in right now, conventional loans at, 3.625. So anyway, that was
do it next time.
Okay.
Hey, so scroll down just a little bit more so we can see the total.
There we go.
Oh, and by the way, let's back up real quick. Property management. This particular client does his own property management, so I put nothing in there. But Chris, you do have part interest in a property management company, so you want to give a quick chat on that?
Tell you, God bless him if he's managing his own properties. I did that for many
years. A lot of them too.
And one of the best decisions I made was to hand over my portfolio to multiple property managers. That was the best thing I could do. They're better at it than me. I don't like the headaches. You can assume a property management company is going to take 10% of gross. And so they might structure it different. They might say 8%, but then they have a renewal fee on leases. Or they might say 7% and they have a renewal fee on leases and they have an exit fee. Some property managers want you to use their crews that are part of their company, so it's a safe number is always 10%. And you're going to build a portfolio and you've got, I'm a mortgage broker. That's what I do for a living. I make much better money being a mortgage broker than I do managing my properties. So I just let the pros do that,
Yep. I hear you.
Cool.
So the total number down there, total monthly expense is $3,562.
Okay, good. So we take 3562 and we come up here and we see the total monthly income, $41.90, minus the total monthly expense. And so your total monthly cash flow is $628 times 12. So your annual cash flow is $7,536. And if you divide that into what you're paying for your rehab budget, your closing costs, and your down payment, which totals $124,000. So 7536 divided by 124,000, you get an annual cash flow rate of 6%. Now in Denver, that's a good idea. Okay, I know that there's other plays to this property. There's appreciation plays. There's value add options to this property. There's, I'll obviously ask your tax guy to confirm this, but there's tax benefits to owning real estate. So, the days of constantly buying 10% or better cash on cash properties have faded away, especially in Denver. I mean, you can still get some if you're willing to, walk through the mud of crazy rehabs and some crazy deals out there. But, 6%.
Come on, it's not that bad, Chris.
I mean, 6% cash flow is a doable deal, and this is a smart investor buying this. So not only is it 6%, but there's also some upside.
This one has a different twist to it, because we always talk about, when you're buying an investment property, what's your exit strategy? How long are you going to keep it, and what are you going to do with it when you're done? And this one is in a really redeveloping area. Half the homes are scraped, and there's multi-units all around it that are, the large fourplexes and things. And so this one, where we're not calculating this here, but there's a real good upside potential in this one for the right developer.
Okay, good. So it's got, down the road development potential.
It does. And the reason that he likes this property is, you see, I put a rehab budget of $8,000 in there. It's going to require about $8,000 in there to get it sort of, prettied up. But then he's going to sit on it while he does his, submitting for permits and things. And it's about a year out in Denver for that. And so he's got a nice cash flow to hold that property while he decides, what he's going to do with it, get the plans drawn up and everything else. So it's a really fun. But I mean, even if he wasn't doing that, that's a pretty darn good, monthly cash flow. I'd be happy with that.
Well, yeah, and then when you take the tax benefits and the appreciation and you put it into our fancy spreadsheet, it gets way better than the 6%. But for a napkin test, anything at 6% in Denver is worth taking the next step, right? The next step is putting it in your fancy spreadsheet. It is doing your due diligence. Maybe it's just get it under contract immediately. Don't you think, Carl?
Yes, I agree. And I think there's a lot more to this conversation that you and I have with our clients, and you on the finance side and myself on the rest of that spreadsheet and future development and things like that. But to start off, this is how we look at a property at first glance and say, is it worth looking into it further? Should we spend any more time with it? And
that's right. And this is the Napkin Test Podcast. So that's the Napkin Test. I mean, you vetted that deal in probably 10 minutes when you looked at it. That's how this should go. And that's why I love the Bigger Pockets sheet, because you can sniff these out pretty quick. So, okay, that is the Napkin Test Podcast. Thanks for joining us, Carl. Carl is one of my favorite hunters. And so he's going to be one of the biggest contributors to this podcast, and he is finding deals all the time. You see his number in that little bottom left corner of his screen. If you need a hunter, if you need an awesome agent, Carl is an awesome agent. So save his number, give him a shout. He's going to be sending a lot of deals to this podcast, and obviously he finds a lot more than we can review, one a week.
Right.
Podcast. So any last thoughts, Mr. Borman?
Well, hey, Chris, I appreciate you, working with me on this and setting up all the technical things here. Like you said, I'm just the house guy. So I find the deals. I, help people get through the deal every step of the way. Help them find the right people to evaluate things, such as, structural engineers if necessary, home inspectors and everything else. Mm-hmm. And then, the first thing I do when I meet someone who's interested in investing in real estate is I connect them with you. And because honestly, you're the smartest guy when it comes to the numbers. I want someone to really understand what this looks like on a monthly basis. And you are just really a consultative genius when it comes to the numbers. So I appreciate our relationship and our friendship, and thanks for inviting me to do this fun little weekly podcast. I've got way more deals than we can talk about.
Many more to come, Carl. We'll see you on the next one.
All right. Thanks again, Chris.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.